Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the EPZ E200 TWS. So first thing to notice, I got the white version. I think this is the most boring version of it that they sell. There's lots of customizations you can do to it. This one is pretty much a white on white. So not the fanciest. Go to their website. You can see all the different color combinations that it comes in, but I think you can change the color of the body of it and the faceplate and customize that to your heart's content. But as far as this one, they sent me the white, and we'll kind of go with what's here. So second thing to notice is the shell itself is more of an IEM shape as opposed to a traditional TWS shape, maybe a bolt or the hang down lollipop or ear tip style, which is what Apple uses on AirPod Pro. This one is definitely more of a traditional IEM shape, and the fit is very much like an IEM shape. You'll also notice I have a KBO7 tip on it, which isn't all that familiar with TWS. They tend to not fit back into the case, and this one happens to fit and charge very well with KBO7 on it, and I think that's probably the most unique thing about this set that I noticed compared to all the TWS that I've actually tried. They tend to not be able to fit back in the case with full-size ear tips on it. So I thought that was pretty cool. So let's go through this kind of quickly, and we'll talk about some things I like and some things I didn't like as much. But I've talked about EPZ as a company before, and this one is really no different. They are just a solid company. They're not really into putting drivers and shells and pumping out lots of models. I think they put a lot of thought into their driver choice, a lot of thought into their tuning, and E200 is sort of like that as well. There's an 8mm driver. I think on the back of it or on the side of it, they call it the PU Peak plus titanium. So maybe that is a titanium dome. I didn't research the 8mm dynamic driver a whole lot, but that's what it says on the box. Customized panel, environmental noise cancellation, Bluetooth 5.2, 5-hour battery, and multiple color matching. As I said, you can get this in as many colors as you want if you go to their website. But as I said, their driver choice, their tunings may not be your preferred tuning. I think Q5 was one of those that I didn't really like the peak at 5K, but I will fully acknowledge that their driver choice and their tuning on it was actually pretty well done. And E200 is kind of in the same way. They picked an 8mm driver that actually sounds pretty well. They picked a unique tuning that I haven't seen all that much. So yeah, very much I think looking forward into 2024, I think EPZ will continue this moving from their traditional domestic market and that style of tuning to a more global appealing sound, and that is pretty much what they said they were going to do when we talked about reviewing the E200 and their new Tipsy model. So that is the direction I know they're going. So we'll have to sit back and wait and see how that transpires across 2024. But as I said, nice 8mm dynamic driver, and really take that into account when we go through the graph in a minute, because those don't graph quite the same as a 10mm. So the bass curve offers a light, sharp mid-bass. No bloat on the back side, no bloat on the front side, because it's an 8mm and it's not actually, the level isn't all that bad, but it doesn't carry too much into the mids at all. There's really no sub-bass softener to it. Really intentional punchy bass, which is actually pretty fun and really a nice change from some of the other signatures that you'll get on a TWS, which they tend to be bass heavier, more sub bass, and kind of a more bloated but fun boomy sound. The bass curve, the mids, and then the treble all lean into a cleaner, clear presentation. If you're looking for a very heavy bass TWS, and I have a lot of them, that's not this one. This one is definitely more in line with a cleaner, clear presentation. And more often than not, TWS go into that bassy, muddy sound, and it's kind of fun outside. I don't really mind it, but this is really an interesting change to hear a real thumpy, defined mid bass with a clean sound. You don't hear that all that often in TWS models. So this one also peaks later at about 3K in the pinna area, and it may be at a high level, but it's better to peak earlier. But it's a lot better than peaking at like 2K at the same level, and we'll take a look at that in a minute. The whole upper treble level is a kind of a guilty pleasure territory. It's kind of a upper treble heavy style. There's a lot of air to it, and perhaps peaky and a little over boosted, but again, it's kind of a fun TWS style, and that's what I prefer, and this fun tuning works outdoors as well. Just that kind of boost on the bass and the boost on the treble tends to work better outdoors for me. You don't need as much volume because it's sort of boosted in the tuning. It's kind of with ZSN Pro 2 was kind of in the same ballpark on the airiness. It's like the amount of upper treble projects around your head in a really super fun way. It's not all that typical. It's not that typical for TWS to project all that much around your head with a lot of air. Same thing exactly that I said about ZSN Pro 2. Physical noise cancellation. So yes, the shell is big enough to give you some physical cancellation, but this is a very typical IEM style shell, and it feels very familiar other than the hang down and the round bolts, like I said. Very familiar shell. If you're into IEMs, you'll understand how to put it into your ear and how make it fit right. So nozzle and charging case that fit KBO7, like I said, that is something that I don't see too often, which is why I mentioned it twice. So on the less likable side, I think at $40, it's affordable, but it's a very popular price product for high-feature TWSs, right? I've reviewed lots of TWSs that are all in the $40 range, and they all tend to have a ton of features, whether that's LDAC or ANC. You know, I think you just end up with lots and lots of features, even at a price point which seems very reasonable, but pure TWS companies really excel in giving you a high amount of features and capabilities at a very low price. And IM companies and companies who just tend to do IMs as side products, you know, it's getting really, really hard to compete against guys like that. And even things like the codecs, this one does AAC and SBC. You should be seeing aptX or LDAC at this kind of price points now. So the treble level isn't as high as in-ear, but it's still really up there for long sessions. And I'm kind of a shorter outside TWS wearer, so it doesn't really bother me as much, and it works for me. But yeah, the level and the upper treble is going to get to you after a bit. So let us take a look at what is going on here. So first thing you're probably saying is, why is there a sub-bass roll-off? And I try to move away from saying those words because it's very misleading. It almost sounds like you're missing something, or the set is inherently bad because it doesn't have a huge sub-bass curve that goes like that. And what I'll say about it is what this gives you by not having, and this is the sub-bass softener, right? So you throw a driver in an IEM that doesn't do sub-bass all that well, and it basically clouds up this bit right here. So instead of having a sharp defined mid-bass, you have a mid-bass with a back end that's kind of fuzzy and bloated. So when you actually curl this off like this, you end up with a very sharp, impactful mid-bass thump to it, and that's exactly what you get here on E200. So this won't appeal to everyone. Some people really love that boom that you get out here. Some people are going to love the sharp, defined mid-bass that you get from a curve like this. And then you can see they basically drop this to the floor right before you get into the mid. So sharp, defined mid-bass, no real carryover or bleed into the mids. So clean, and then you boost the pinna a bit and the whole treble bit. And again, you end up with a sharper, cleaner, more detailed sound presentation. So all these things sort of combined, and again, this is why I say EPZ is very thoughtful and intentional on what they did. There's no real mixed messages here. Everything here is about doing clean bass, clean mids, and then a nice fun treble that projects around your head, lots of air, lots of cleanliness to it. Yeah, lots of presence. So the whole thing kind of adds up to exactly what you see on the graph and how it sounds in your ear. So if you're very used to TWS that have this big boom kind of muddiness here, it's not like that at all. It's a lot of hearing a very sharp, impactful bass, very clean mids without any bleed to it, so they don't sound as warm and maybe as, I don't know, thick as some other sets that you might have. But I think in that respect, and that's why I said it's kind of a guilty pleasure set as far as I don't mind the boom. The clean mids with a lot of upper treble and treble air gives you this really fun, big sound on big sound stage. You just don't hear all that often in TWS. So for me, it was pretty cool to hear all of this come together and to look at the graph and say, yep, that's kind of exactly what they were thinking when they put this one together. So that is what I got on E200. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I will see you next time.